Hey guys, it's Lord of the Pogs. Last week I had the opportunity to introduce my daughter to Back to the Future. I don't think she was really into it, which is fine, she's only 7. But when we got to Back to the Future Part 2, it was fun to say, this is the way the world looked the year you were born. But what if Back to the Future really happened? For this video, we're not going to discuss the physics of time travel or how the flux capacitor worked. We're going to assume that the time machine worked exactly the way Doc said it did.
I finally invent something that works!
What I'm interested in is how the events in Back to the Future would have affected the characters on a more personal level. Obviously, Back to the Future is personal. When Marty McFly travels back in time, he inadvertently prevents his future parents from falling in love, compromising his own existence, and is forced to reconcile them before going back to 1985. The alterations made in the past create lasting changes that affect the future. In the original reality, Marty lives with his depressed alcoholic mother and meek father who is bullied by his boss, and 2 older siblings who are professional and social failures. When Marty returns to the altered future, his whole family is successful and happy, including his father who is a successful science fiction author. But it's not the people who changed. By going back in time, Marty created an alternate universe. This concept was explored by Stephen King in his 2011 novel 11/22/63, where every trip to the past creates an alternate reality, with a different past and a different future. When Marty left at the beginning of the movie in 1985, he returned to a 1985 in an alternate universe. But what about the original universe? Marty would have disappeared in the middle of the night and never returned. As you can see from this diagram, when Marty traveled to 1955, he created an alternate timeline by interfering with his parents' first meeting. Arguably, when he drove the car into Mr. Peabody's farm, that in itself would have created a new timeline, because Twin Pines Mall would exist on the original timeline, and it would be called Lone Pine Mall on the new timeline. When Marty returns to 1985, he sees Doc get shot and himself leave in the DeLorean. This event still would have taken place in the new reality he created, which is why he was able to observe it. But again, as you can see from the diagram, when Marty went back in time, that reality didn't just cease to exist. The timeline continued forward, but because Marty traveled to the future of the new reality he created, he never returned to the old reality from which he left. Some of the most bizarre unsolved mysteries are missing persons cases, especially when there's no trace of the person, no evidence of a crime being committed, no suspects, and the person is never found. On August 6, 1930, New York State Supreme Court Justice Joseph Crater walked out of a restaurant on West 45th Street in Manhattan and was never seen again. Joseph received a phone call in late July, but the contents of the call remain unknown. A week later, he spent about 2 hours going through his personal files and destroying documents before having his law clerk cash 2 checks totaling over $5,000, about $85,000 today. He was last seen leaving Billy Haas Chop House at 332 West 45th Street and getting into a taxicab, although the 2 witnesses later changed their story to say they had gotten into the taxi and Joseph walked down the street. On June 3, 2011, University of Indiana student Lauren Spearer disappeared after leaving a sports bar. She was seen entering Kilroy's Sports Bar in Bloomington, Indiana, with her friend Corey Rossman at 1:46 a.m. on June 3rd and exited the bar at 2:27 a.m. At 2:30 a.m., Lauren was seen entering Smallwood Plaza Apartments, where her friend lived, and interacted with witness Zach Oakes, who noticed how intoxicated she was and asked if she was okay. At 2:48 a.m., Lauren was seen by security cameras mounted on nearby apartments entering an alley between College Avenue and Morton Street, and exited the alley toward an empty parking lot 3 minutes later at 2:51 a.m. Her keys and purse were later found in this area. When Lauren and Corey arrived at Corey's apartment, Corey went to bed. His roommate Michael tried to convince Lauren to sleep over, but Lauren insisted on returning to her own apartment. She left at 4:30 a.m. This was the last reported sighting of her. On March 4, 1975, musician Jim Sullivan left Los Angeles for Nashville and checked into a hotel in Santa Rosa, New Mexico the following day. He left his key inside the room and was seen the day after that, 26 miles away at a privately owned ranch. Witnesses report that he was last seen walking away from his car, which was later found abandoned at this ranch, containing money, his guitar, and clothes. Susie Streeter, Stacy McCall, and Susie's mother Cheryl Levitt went missing from Cheryl's own home in Springfield, Missouri on June 7, 1998. Cheryl was last heard from talking on the phone at 11:15 p.m. on June 6th. Susie and Stacy were last seen at 2 a.m. on the morning of June 7th, leaving a graduation party. They intended to stay at their friend Janelle Kirby's house, but decided to stay at Cheryl's house instead. It is assumed they arrived because their clothing, jewelry, purses, and vehicles were all found at the house. Janelle and her boyfriend arrived at the house at 9 a.m. the next day. The door was unlocked and all three women were missing, but their vehicles were all parked outside. While inside the house, Janelle answered 2 calls from unidentified males making sexual innuendos. A strange message was found on the answering machine that police believe may have held a clue as to the women's whereabouts, but it was accidentally erased. Although the crime scene was corrupted by about 20 people who visited the house that day before police arrived, police were able to confirm that the beds had been slept in and there was no sign of a struggle. Martin McFly was last seen at home on Friday, October 25, 1985 in Hill Valley, California. The body of Emmett Brown, who was believed to have been an acquaintance of Martin's, was found the following day at Twin Pines Mall near a trailer that was used to transport a car to the mall. He had been shot multiple times in the chest, his dog was locked inside the trailer, and Martin's skateboard was found near Emmett's body, placing him at the scene. A van with the VIN numbers scratched off was also found at the mall. It's believed that the unknown occupant of the van is responsible for the murder and that either Martin fled in the car or the unknown occupant abducted Martin and took the car. No trace of Martin or the car has ever been found. This would be the missing persons case if Back to the Future really happened. And what about the new present? How is it that Marty's whole family is successful, but he's not? He would have been, and when he went to sleep the night before, he would have woken up the next day literally a different person. In reality, amnesia is extraordinarily rare. Ribot's law of retrograde amnesia states that more recent memories are more likely to be lost than more remote memories. Henry Malaysian had a bilateral medial temporary lobectomy in an attempt to cure his epilepsy. It was mostly successful, but a severe side effect was that he became unable to form new memories. In March of 1887, evangelical preacher from Rhode Island, Ansel Bourne, woke up in Pennsylvania and couldn't remember how he got there or any of the events of the last several months. This was one of the first documented cases of psychogenic amnesia that is not the result of injury or disease, and the person functions normally but does not recall their identity. On March 14, 2005, a routine root canal left a 38-year-old British man unable to form new memories, and every morning since then he wakes up believing it to be the day he received his root canal in 2005. In 1985, a case of herpes encephalitis left 47-year-old conductor, musician, and musicologist Clive Wearing unable to remember anything before that year and unable to form new memories. He was under the constant impression that he had just emerged from unconsciousness because he had no evidence in his own mind of ever being awake before. A Frenchman found in a Lyon railway station in 1918 was unable to remember who he was and did not recognize his surroundings or recall how he got there. He was finally identified in 1930 as Octave Monjoy, and he never regained his lost memory. On December 17, 2008, Scott Bolzen, former NFL player for the Cleveland Browns, slept in the men's bathroom at his place of work, causing a severe concussion. After regaining consciousness, he remembered nothing of his wife and children, of his time in the NFL, or of his subsequent career in aviation. At the age of 32, single mother Naomi Jacobs woke up one morning in 2008 having forgotten all the details of her life since 1992 and believing herself to be 15 years old. Her home was completely unfamiliar to her, and she didn't recognize her 10-year-old son. Her memory returned slowly, with most of it restored within 8 weeks. On October 27, 1985, Martin McFly woke up in his own home, and although he recognized his parents and brother and sister, he believed them to live entirely different lives with different identities. He believed his father, who is a successful science fiction author, to work in a menial white-collar office, his mother, who was a member at a tennis club, to be overweight and alcoholic, his brother Dave, who worked at an investment firm, to work at Burger King, and the mechanic working on his dad's car on the morning he woke up to be his dad's boss. He remembered almost nothing of his life or his family, although he remembered his girlfriend, Jennifer Parker, and retained basic functions like how to ride a skateboard, play a guitar, and drive a car. It would be the amnesia case, and probably the most bizarre one on record, if Back to the Future really happened. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider dropping a tip. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit that little bell down in the corner to get notifications on more videos like this one.